Hello and welcome into BTN's Take 10 podcast. This is Alex Roux of BTN.com. We've got another jam-packed episode for you here on the Take 10 podcast as we've officially entered the month of March. March Madness is just about here. It's actually kind of weird this year because this time last year we were in New York City playing the Big Ten tournament already a week early, and then just the way the calendar worked out this year, not only is the Big Ten tournament back to a normal date, but it's another week later, so we're 2 weeks still from the start of the Big Ten basketball tournament. It's just weird having it be a full 2 weeks later than last year, and it's got me kind of thrown off, but it'll get here soon enough, and as soon as March hits, I officially consider it March Madness, so happy March to everyone out there, one of my favorite months of the year, and we've got some great guests here today to start the month right. So first up, we've got a guest that if you've listened throughout the last couple of years on the Take 10 podcast, you may have heard before. He's making his third appearance on the Take 10 podcast, so I think he's in the lead now as far as recurring guests go. Spike Albrecht, the former Michigan and Purdue basketball player, played 4 years at Michigan, was a hero in the national title game in 2013 for the Wolverines when he scored, I think, 17 points against Louisville off the bench, and then transferred as a grad transfer to Purdue for his final year and won a Big Ten title with the Boilermakers. So always a great source of knowledge, info, insight as a young alum, and guy with still a bunch of connections to the current landscape of the sport of basketball, especially some of his guys from Michigan that went on to the NBA, and guys that are still hooping across the globe from both Purdue and Michigan. So Spike's a great guy to talk to, especially with his alma maters doing so well this year in college hoops. Get a lot of Purdue and Michigan insight from him, and just a lot of solid general sports talk discussion with Mr. Albrecht. So we'll get to Spike in just a second. I mentioned we do have a jam-packed episode today. We have two segments that follow Spike's interview. We get back to our regular StatHead segment with BTN researcher Harold Shelton. If you listened to the show before, you know we have Harold on quite often to break down the numbers behind Big Ten basketball. Nobody knows Big Ten hoops better than Harold, and he takes us behind the Big Ten title race. His alma mater, Michigan State, has great insight into how they've been able to withstand the loss of Nick Ward and remain in the Big Ten title hunt. We talk Purdue, we talk Michigan, and we talk some of the resurgent teams in the Big Ten like Penn State, as well as the middle of the pack and how they fare heading into March Madness. So plenty of great insight from H as always, and he's going to be our middle segment. We have one more following him at the very end, and that's our BTN Call for the Culture segment with producer Colleen Degnan. If you've listened in the last month and a half or so, you know we've brought Colleen on to fill us in on the intersection of sports and pop culture, working plenty of Big Ten connections to the sports and pop culture kind of realm. And reminder before we get to those three discussions, please subscribe to the show if you haven't already. We're available on iTunes, Google Play, Podbean, and you can subscribe to our YouTube channel as well and find all of our episodes in a playlist on the Big Ten Network YouTube channel. So leave a review, a rating. If you haven't done so already, if you're streaming right now, go subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Any feedback you want to leave is much appreciated. All right, enough with the intros. Let's get to our first discussion with Spike Albrecht, former Michigan and Purdue basketball player. That interview starts right now. Very pleased to be joined once again by a former Michigan and Purdue hooper, Spike Albrecht. Spike, before we even exchange pleasantries here, I have to congratulate you on being what I think is the first three-time recurring guest here on this Take 10 podcast. So, we've had plenty of people come on twice, but you're the first three-peat, so congrats.
Thank you, man. Yeah, I'm a veteran to the podcast, so I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So, Spike, it's been, about a year, 11 months or so since I talked to you last. Update us on what's going on with you these days. My sources say, we got some inside sources here in the network, say you're in the city of Chicago. Is that right?
I am doing pharmaceutical sales in Chicago for the past year, but I recently just accepted a new job in medical sales that's going to be taking me to Nashville. So my time was short-lived in Chicago, but I'm excited about a new chapter.
Congrats on the new gig. What do you know about Nashville? Have you got any connections down there? Or are you kind of going in blind?
I've got some friends there. I know that there's good weather and good-looking women, so that's about all I need to know, man.
There you go. And last time I saw you, we were down in San Antonio at Final Four. You were on the BTN set right there in the Riverwalk, and you were doing the media rounds as a former Final Four darling, with Michigan. So you got 2 chances now this year to do that again because your 2 former schools, Michigan and Purdue, are very, very good this year, and I think either have the potential to go to the Final Four. So what's your thoughts on their potential? What do you think the chances are that at least one of those schools makes it to Minneapolis a month from now?
Yeah, I think they're both legit, candidates to get to the Final Four. Obviously, Michigan's, proven they've done it before, especially, in recent history. I think top to bottom, they got the team to make a deep run in March. And then Purdue, I think they really surprised people this season, but, the tournament's all about guard play and, having a guy like Carson Edwards, if he gets hot, I think they have a legit chance to make a Final Four run.
How much Big Ten basketball do you watch these days? I'm sure you keep up closely with your former teams, but how much do you get a chance, just being a 20-something-year-old, I'm sure with other obligations, do you keep up fairly regularly?
Yeah. It's been a little harder this year just because I've been so busy with work, but I definitely keep up on both Michigan and Purdue. Actually, just this week I was in Ann Arbor for the game Sunday, and then last night I was at the Purdue game. So I definitely try to keep tabs on them as much as possible.
Was that you with the whistle last night at the Purdue-Illinois game? They had to stop play because someone was whistling.
No, it was not me, thank God. But that was bizarre, man. I'll tell you what, the fans in Mackey Arena, they bring it every game, though. It was rocking last night. Yeah,
and it's been something that's been repeated all year by broadcasters, people here at BTN, players as well. Matt Harms last night said it was the best atmosphere in the country. If you kind of expand on that, what, as a player, either as an opponent or, somebody that's on the Purdue Boilermakers, what jumps out above all the rest? Because there's plenty of good atmospheres in college basketball, but what makes Mackey even next level beyond that? I think it's Indiana basketball, the fans love basketball in Indiana, and Purdue fans they're insane. They're at every game. I remember when I was there, whether it was a conference game or a non-conference game in, November or December, I felt like every game was sold out, and, they know basketball. They know if the refs make a bad call and, they jump all over them. But you can feel that and sense that as a player and as an opponent as well. I think they got a big home court advantage there, and I think that's a large reason why they've had so much success over the past 4 or 5 years at home, especially. So Wednesday night, you got the result you wanted at your alma mater. Purdue beat Illinois. However, you mentioned you were in the house on Sunday, and obviously did not get the desired result with Michigan State marching in there and beating your Wolverines. So how do you think MSU, especially down their big man Nick Ward, was able to come in and beat Michigan? A rivalry game, obviously, anything can happen, but how do you think they did it, being in attendance there?
Man, I'll tell you what. I'm biased, but I've been down on Michigan State all year. Like I didn't think they were as good as everyone was saying, and obviously I'm partially biased, but they came in. They played awesome, man. Cassius Winston, he really impressed me, and I thought he did a great job of just controlling the entire game. Obviously down Nick Ward and Langford's out too, but I feel like other guys stepped up and they just really controlled that whole game. I thought they had a great game plan together, and Cassius just kind of dominated that whole game.
And Purdue's one thing because you were there for one season, but Michigan, you're there 4 years, and I'm sure the pain of losing to a rival cuts pretty deep. So as an alum, you're now in this fraternity with other people you shared the court with in Michigan, and you've got these guys on the other side at Michigan State. We have video here at BTN of former Michigan and Michigan State players talking about that rivalry. How deep does that cut, once you're off the court but still taking in these games as an alum? How into the rivalry do you get?
Oh, you definitely get into it. I see guys all the time on Instagram and social media, like tagging each other and, talking trash. I mean, that's bragging rights, and it's not just, while you're playing, but there's a sense of pride that goes with, being an alum and, wanting to see your team be successful. I saw, though, Coach Beilein he had a quote the other day that I thought was really good. And college basketball is so much different than college football, where, like, one loss to your rival, like Michigan in football, if they lose to Ohio State or Michigan State, like, that's the end all be all, right? Like, people are pissed. But with basketball, it's a little bit different. And I don't know if you caught the quote, but he said something along the lines of, like, we got a lot more to our season than, beating Michigan State in a regular season game. And obviously, as a fan, that you don't want to hear that, and that sucks to hear, because you're so pissed you just lost. But, I think it's a great point, because at the end of the day, if they make it to a Final Four, or, like a national championship like last year, you think anybody remembered whether or not, who won in the regular season? They're remembering, who makes a deep run in the tournament. So if that loss helps Michigan come March and April, I'm totally cool with it.
It's a good point, and you got a chance for revenge coming up pretty soon here. You're going to be in the house in East Lansing. I think it's March 10th when the rematch takes place there.
I don't think I'll be at that one. I try to stay out of East Lansing as much as possible. So they don't like me too much there. So I'll probably just sit home and watch that one on the couch.
I don't blame you too much. I know they're friendly there, but, it's easy for me to say. It's much harder for someone like yourself to walk into that environment. I'm glad you pointed out Beilein's quote, though, because I noticed you retweeted and kind of added and piggybacked your thoughts on another coach's quote. Matt Painter, when he was talking back in December, I believe, when Purdue was at 6-5, a world away from where they are now in contention for a Big Ten title. And it was his comments after they lost to Notre Dame. They kind of went viral on social media. He was saying about his players, but kind of also college basketball players in general, you have to get over yourself. You have too many guys searching for answers through their jump shot. And since he said that, Purdue's 15-2, and like I said, in the driver's seat for a Big Ten title. And you kind of jumped on those comments and said, Painter's absolutely right, and I definitely didn't want to hear that when I was in college. And these guys need to understand, like, and have better perspective that, it's hard to hear for a college athlete. So can you take us inside that perspective of kind of an 18 to 22-year-old kid and the adjustment that it takes, and how Painter was able to kind of maybe wake them up through those comments?
Yeah, for sure. First off, Coach Payne is like the king of sound bites. So that was an awesome quote, and definitely something that resonated with me. But at the end of the day, I mean, these kids are, 18 to 22, especially the younger kids who are coming in as freshmen and sophomore, their entire lives they've been told they're the greatest thing since sliced bread, right? The stars of their high school team scored all the points, and now you come into college and, you're coming off the bench, you're a role player. You got people at home, whether it's family or friends, telling you like, oh, that's BS. You should be playing. You should be starting. And that sort of stuff is just kind of toxic, and it eats away at you as, an 18 or 19-year-old kid. So I think he really did a good job of, putting it into perspective. And I think you've seen his team come a long way, and I think a large part of their success is they've all kind of bought in, and they've started to find their identity, and each individual player has kind of figured out their roles. Obviously Carson is their guy, who's going to score a lot of the points, but the other guys on that team can affect the game in a lot of different ways. And I think Coach Paint just, he keeps it 100, and, he's a really, really good, genuine dude. And, that's something that a lot of kids might not want to hear, but they need to hear, and Coach Paint isn't afraid to speak his mind.
Yeah, you said he's the king of sound bites. Why do you think he's so good at not only relaying those messages, but also extracting, like you said, the potential out of players, not to be the stars, but to adapt to a role like Dakota Mathias or Ryan Klein or Grady Eifert has done as their careers have evolved?
Well, two things. I think first, you could say a lot of things about Coach Paint and this or that and whatever, but like the one thing I respect a ton about Coach Paint, he said this from day one when he recruited me. He was like, Spike, this or that, blah, blah, blah. He goes, but I'll tell you what, he goes, I'll never lie to you. And I was like, okay, like, what does that mean? But like, he shoots it straight, and he'll let you know if you're messing up. And like, I remember when I was there, I had no reason to complain about not playing a ton, because I wasn't better than the guy next to me. And, I think he does a great job of, just telling the truth and being honest with you. And I think that speaks a lot to his character, but it also resonates with players. I think that's why they play so hard for him. And then, I'm sorry, can you repeat the second part of your question?
No, you pretty much answered it there. That's really good insight, because I think as observers, we don't always know about those conversations that go on behind the scenes. But, for him to just be straight up with you, to keep it 100, like you said, that's the type of stuff that, is interesting to hear, especially with, you never know, maybe not coaches. I don't have any coaches in mind, but you just know about coaches that will blow smoke or not be straight up, and then players are wondering why they're sitting on the bench. So that's good to know. One more Purdue question about this season. Are you kind of surprised that the turnaround has been so dramatic that they went from, 500 team pretty much through December to now a Big Ten title contender, a top 10 team, or not really? Did you kind of see this potential in them even early on when there were some struggles?
I'll be honest, man. I didn't see them, doing a full 180 like this. I expected them to get it going and, be at the top, 4 or 5 top half of the league. To be up there though in the driver's seat alongside Michigan State. I think they're 14-3 now in conference.
Yeah, 14-3, I believe. Yeah.
It's incredible what Coach Pink's done, especially. You look at what they lost, losing 4 seniors and shoot like over 75% of their scoring or whatever it was. In my mind, in my opinion, he's got to be the front runner for Coach of the Year, not only in the Big Ten, but also maybe nationally.
Yeah, no arguments here. Spike, I'm curious. We're about the same age. We got out of college around the same time, and obviously, as you move on, people will fall out of your social circles, whether that's a basketball team or just the people you kept up with while in school. So I'm curious, who are some of the guys that you, whether it's Michigan or Purdue, keep up with the most to this day? Maybe 2 or 3 guys that you might have in a group chat or still keep up with on Snapchat or Instagram. Does anyone jump out at you from your boys from college?
Yeah, I'll start first with Michigan. I definitely keep up most, I'd probably say, with Karis LeVert, Nick Stauskas. I was actually with Glenn Robinson in Ann Arbor this weekend, along with Zach Novak. Obviously, he was a little bit older, but me and Zach go way back. And then from Purdue, I know I was only there for a year, but Grady Eifert, who's still on the team now, he's one of my really close friends. And then both Dakota Mathias and PJ Thompson, we all keep in pretty good contact. So it's always fun to reconnect with those guys and share stories and things like that.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Karis, because when he got hurt earlier this season, just scrolling through your Twitter timeline, obviously you were very distressed, like everyone in the Michigan community was. And then when he came back and got that standing ovation with the Nets, you tweeted that he was one of your favorite human beings of all time. What puts him in that category in your eyes? What makes him so special?
Man, I love Karis, dude. Me and Karis, we were at Michigan 4 years together. We roomed together for 3 years, both, our sophomore, junior, and senior year. So we became very close. But he's just an awesome guy. He's just a great dude. He's got a good heart. But he's been through a lot, not just in basketball, but in life. And then to suffer the injuries he's had, and then just to come back every time, it just shows the resiliency and the toughness that kid has. But above all, he's just a really good dude, and I love him to death.
Now, on the flip side, your Purdue alums that you listed, I thought it was funny this year that, one, Grady Eifert's emerged, and he's made a name for himself, but I thought it was funny when we kind of had some fun on Twitter with his brother. I think we tagged his brother Tyler, the NFL tight end, in a tweet, and wanted to get his attention with one of Grady's highlights here at BTN, and Tyler responded, from now on, refer to me as Grady Eifert's brother. I don't know if you saw that, but I thought it was pretty funny. No,
I did. That was hilarious. Eifert's, they're awesome. They're great people. I went on vacation with them following my 5th year there at Purdue, so I know their whole family really well, and Ty's a great dude. But I love Grady. I'm the biggest Grady fan. Is he not the toughest dude in college basketball? That dude, he just lays his body on the line every single game. And I'm so happy that he's finally getting, he's getting to play and he's getting the recognition because he's certainly put in the hard work over his 4 years.
I mean, you got to be tough for your brother as an NFL tight end, or else you're not going to fare very well at home when scuffles break out and stuff.
Oh yeah, no. I'm sure he's taken a lot of whoopings at home from Ty, because Ty's a big, strong dude, and they're a football family, so they're all nuts. But Grady's awesome, and he plays like a football player on the basketball court. And I know they love him there, and the fans love him. They were going nuts for him last night, so it's fun to see.
All right, Spike. Well, the Big Ten tournament's coming up here in a couple weeks. You're an Indiana kid. You obviously like Chicago. Lived here for a period of time. And you played in several of these Big Ten tournaments. So it's weird because it's the first time it's back in Chicago in 4 years. I think it's been a 3-year hiatus as it kind of jumped around a little bit. And you played in several of the sites. So if you had to pick any of the hosting sites for the Big Ten tournament, that includes United Center here in Chicago, Bankers Life in Indy, where it switched off between those two for most of the years. And I think you would have played in the Capital One Arena, Verizon Center in D.C.
Yep.
And then MSG last year in New York, which by the time that came around, you were gone. So if you had to pick any of those sites to host, what would it be?
Man, I got to go with Chicago. I think that's where it belongs. Obviously I didn't get to play when it was in New York, but I played in the Garden before. But I just love it. I love it when it's in Chicago. I think that's the best. And obviously I'm biased. I live 45 minutes from Chicago. But I'm pumped that it's back, and I will definitely be in attendance for this year's tournament for sure.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll see you there. You said you played in the Garden. Were you at any of those tournament games last year when Michigan went on that run?
I was not. I couldn't make it all the way out there, unfortunately. I figured I'd save up and try to go to some of the tournament games instead. So I'm glad I did.
Yeah, wise investment.
Go to the Final Four.
For sure.
Yeah, no doubt.
But obviously I understand the fans being upset if it was at New York MSG every year. But last year, I don't know if it was just because the games were great, but there was a vibe there that I think is worth returning to maybe once every 5-8 years. I think there's value there. I know Big Ten fans don't want to hear it for the most part, the ones in the Midwest, but it was pretty cool being at MSG. What was it like when you played there? And what I assume was like the 2K Classic or just a one-off game. What was that experience like?
Yeah, it was my freshman year. It was the preseason NIT, and it was nuts. So I don't have anything bad to say about it being in New York or out in DC. I'm just biased because I'm from Chicago, but especially in New York, Michigan, Michigan's fan base and alums out there, it's crazy. So every time Michigan goes to play in New York, it feels like a home game. And I know talking with the coaches and the teams from last year, they said it was nuts. But I couldn't make the trip, so I was kind of pissed.
Right. No, I do agree with you though that when it's in Chicago, it's awesome. With the arena now, I think kind of being upgraded since the last time it was here, and the area around there with the bars and restaurants being a little more developed than last time. I think it's going to be awesome here in a couple weeks. I like Indy too, just because Indy's such a great event city. And yeah, like I said, I know people don't want to hear it, but I think if it went back to the East Coast once in a while, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. But it's going to be cool to see you, back here, and I'm sure we'll get a chance to catch up when you're around on the sidelines here. But I have to ask before I let you go, a couple more Chicago-based questions, because I notice you are a Chicago fan by the looks of your Twitter timeline. So first off, need your thoughts on the Bears. Have you recovered yet from the traumatic experience of being Cody Parkey'd and having the season come to an abrupt end like it did?
I was absolutely disgusted. I'm just disgusted, but I don't know. I mean, for them not to get rid of him earlier, that was poetic justice. You knew what you were going to get. But I don't have hey, he missed a field goal, stuff happens. I wasn't going to hate on him. I'm not one of those fans because I know what it's like to to fail and, miss big shots or whatever. But when he's on Good Morning America, the next day or so, that took me over the edge. I was I'm done with this dude. So I'm glad they got rid of him.
Yeah, that was going to be my follow-up is the whole Good Morning America from a high-level college athlete perspective. Can you imagine a teammate doing that after, I don't know, missing 3 free throws to lose a game or something like that?
Yeah, no, it's disgusting. Like it drives me nuts. Like if I'm his teammates, I'm like, what in the hell is this guy doing? Especially because they backed him the entire time in the locker room. You know, when these dudes are out there laying their bodies on the line for 60 minutes, all season long, and then you got one job as a kicker. I know it's a lot harder than it sounds, but like, dude, come on.
Yeah, I'm with you. Total lack of self-awareness to go on GMA, and I don't want to hear any more about the fact that it was tipped. Like, it was only tipped because he couldn't get it over the line. Like, it was a weak kick. Let's just be honest.
Yeah, no. It doesn't matter. It was tipped. He wasn't going to make it anyways. Everybody knew that.
This just turned into...
He made the first one because he knew they were going to call timeout, so it was absolutely no pressure. And then the second one, I was like, oh, we're screwed. Yeah,
this has turned into a meatball Chicago sports fan discussion. I got to move on to your other Chicago-based team that we share a fandom of, and that's the Cubs. What are your thoughts on this offseason as spring training heats up? I've been kind of, not disgusted, but disappointed in their lack of activity. I don't know about you.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm a little bit worried, especially when, some of the teams in our division are making such great moves. Like the Cardinals got better, the Pirates got better. Obviously, Milwaukee's good. So I was a little surprised, especially with the money the Cubs got. I thought for sure they'd try to go acquire some big names. I think we're running out of time, so I'm hoping guys get healthy. I'd love to see Darvish pitch this year. We paid him more money than God, so I hope he gets back on the mound for us. But I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah,
hopefully.
It's a good sign that we're at this point as Cubs fans, because if you look back like 5 years, to think that we would be with a World Series in the bag, complaining that we don't have like another $100, $200, $300 million free agent, I think we would take it. But it's nice to kind of be not quite at the Red Sox level of fandom yet, but at least a point where we can expect to contend for a championship, or at least demand that from our front office.
Yeah, no, 100%. We've come a long way, but I feel like in sports, like your window, unless you're the Patriots, like your window to compete and win championships is like very short, right? So I'm just hoping we aren't like letting that, slip through our fingers.
Absolutely, yeah. That's not to say I'm complacent or anything like that. Like I'm disappointed for sure. But yeah, we'll have to see how it turns out. I'm sure if you're at Wrigley, this summer, let me know. That's my neck of the woods. I'm sure I'll get to a handful of games as well. I'm looking forward to better weather. So,
no doubt.
Spike, before I let you go, one more question. This might ruffle some feathers, but I got to ask it. Having been to both of these places at your two past campuses, if you had to choose, and I picked these, you can actually choose your favorite restaurant at Michigan and Purdue, but I just picked these because they're the most well known at their respective towns. So I picked Zingerman's and Triple X at Purdue. One, are those even your two favorite restaurants at those places? Are they well known? And if not, feel free to pick another. But which would you have to go with if you had to pick the top restaurant in Ann Arbor and West Lafayette?
No, definitely both are very well known. Obviously, I was at Michigan for 4 years, so I know a little bit more of their restaurants. But if I had to pick between the two, I'm like, when it comes to food, I try to eat somewhat healthy. So Triple X is like a late night smash. Like I would go with Zingerman's, but maybe my favorite place in Ann Arbor is it's like a place no one knows really. It's called Frida's Batitas. It's stupid awesome. You should, next time you're in Ann Arbor, it's fire. So that would be my recommendation in Ann Arbor.
All right, I'm marking it down. I've had some really good food in Ann Arbor. It's great food, college town, great food city. So I'll just add it to the list. And Spike, it's always a great discussion when I have you on. Like I said, I'm sure we'll catch up here in person soon. But always appreciate the insight, especially coming from two, of college basketball's best programs. Always great to have you on. Like I said.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate you having me.
All right, thanks once again to Spike for joining me, taking some time. Spike's one of the genuine good dudes in recent college basketball. Easy guy to root for and always easy guy to talk to. Always enjoy having him on the podcast. I'm sure it won't be the last time. All right, as I said at the top of the show, after Spike, we got a stat hit segment with Harold Shelton. We go behind the numbers of Big Ten basketball, especially with March arriving and the Big Ten tournament right around the corner and March Madness beyond that. Great guy to talk to as always, and we'll get right into it now. It's BTN researcher Harold Shelton. All right, back in the lab once again with BTN researcher Harold Shelton for our Stat Head segment. It's been a few weeks, H. How you been?
Been good, man. We're just about at March now, so, it's the grind is real and get a lot of scenarios coming up. Things are getting sorted out, so it's a fun time.
Yeah, last day of February, we're recording this, so I had to get you back in here. Down the stretch we come now, and not a whole lot has changed as far as the Big Ten picture is concerned since we last chatted, but what has changed is the situations these teams are in, especially when it comes to your alma mater, Michigan State Spartans, and credit to them for still being in a position to win the league, at least a share, and potentially outright with Nick Ward going out since we last talked. So how have they been able to do that? How did they ride out that 3-game losing streak and turn that into a 5-game winning streak?
So I think a lot of the 3-game losing streak was effort related. The first 30-ish minutes of the Purdue game, Purdue just completely took it to them. I think that was more Purdue wanting it more. Michigan State dug too big of a hole to come back against a really good team on the road. Shame in losing that. The Indiana game, I thought Indiana just played harder. I thought Michigan State just kind of figured with the week off and game day being there that they would just kind of roll at home, and that wasn't the case. And Illinois punched them in the mouth. Same thing as the Purdue game, get them down big early. And, they made a rally, but, Illinois was able to hold them off. And I think after that third loss, it was kind of like, hey, guys, maybe we aren't as good as, people are saying or as people thought. We need to go back to the drawing board and start defending better, start rebounding better. They've been able to do that. And without Ward, their defense has been even better. Especially in that Michigan game. Xavier Tillman allows them to do a lot of things that they can't do with Ward. They can switch a lot of pick and rolls. Tillman's a better rebounder. I think he's more athletic. So the fact that Ward's out definitely hurts them on offense. It hurts their transition game, but defensively it allows them to really lock in, especially switching on pick and rolls with Teskey and Simpson. We saw that they were kind of neutralized for most of that second half.
Looking at some of that footage that our BTN Journey guys collected, and I think it's going to come out in this week's episode, but we shared some of it on social media of the footage from the post-game locker room, and Izzo celebrating with the guys, and he looked as happy as I've seen him since I've been following Michigan State, legitimately overjoyed at their effort after they beat Michigan. How has he been able to bring along some of the role players, and who do you think has really stepped up? You mentioned Tillman is one, maybe on the perimeter, who has stepped up for Michigan State as they've had to look elsewhere for production on offense.
Well, I think, and you'll see it probably next Saturday for Senior Day, Matt McQuaid and Kenny Goins. Those are two guys who, when they first started playing, you did not think they would have this level of production. Matt McQuaid was known as a knockdown shooter coming out of high school, and now he's an all Big Ten defender who happens to hit 40% from three. Last couple of years he had confidence issues. He would be scared to shoot. That you definitely don't see that this year. He's, willing and able to make threes, and he's been erasing wings all throughout the league all year. Kenny Goins has somehow become a stretch four who's hitting like 35% of his threes as a guy who barely even shot threes before this year. And, he's averaging 9 rebounds a game at 6'7". So, these are guys that have just, continued to get better ever since they stepped on campus. They're grinders like Izzo is. And so I think you'll see, both of those guys, when they get honored next Saturday, he'll be very emotional because they're very much like him.
Yeah, McQuaid is this year's Dakota Mathias pretty much. Same type of story. I remember him on Purdue coming in and not being able to defend guys in practice, getting beat up, and then turning himself into a really good defender as well as a sharpshooter on the perimeter. So speaking of Purdue now, that's going to be Michigan State's who they're keeping an eye on, the rest of the way here, especially with the games that Purdue has coming up. They got Ohio State at home, and then at Minnesota and at Northwestern to close it out. So just as a Michigan State fan, obviously you've been playing the scenarios out. Which game do you think they're most likely to drop out of those last three? They're obviously going to be favored going into all three.
I would say at Minnesota is probably the best chance for a loss, just because Purdue has struggled on the road. At Mackey, they've been virtually unbeatable. I mean, especially in the second half of games. We've seen them struggle for a half against, Penn State or Illinois, and in the second half they, put the Jets on and, just leave teams in their dust. But on the road, they survived a rock fight at Indiana, only scoring 48 points. Nebraska pushed them to the wire. It was only a 3-point game. Carson Edwards has been hit or miss on the road. Matt Harms and Grady Eifert have had to save them multiple times. And so the fact that that game's at the barn, Minnesota could be very desperate to try to get, a quad one win and kind of help out their tournament resume. If a loss will happen, it's probably there.
I think Wednesday the stat was 38 of 39 at home for at Mackey Arena for Purdue. So it's crazy what they've been able to do. And I'm going to continue to eat my words because a few months ago, I think when we were heading into the reboot of the Big Ten season, I said how Purdue's in some trouble here. I think they were 6-5 or 8-6 at the time. And not only have they played themselves out of any sort of concern that they're in the driver's seat for the Big Ten title race. It's been remarkable, and I just want to get your thoughts on, as we kind of reflect now on what's been a very good season, regardless of how it finishes, how they did it in a year what was supposed to probably be a step back for them.
It's funny how it works when you had a bunch of seniors last year, a bunch of sweat equity, guys who, scored 1,500 points. They had the balance, but I don't know how physically tough they were. They were very skilled. They were efficient guys, but you can kind of punch them in the mouth and they might waver like Texas Tech did to them in the tournament. These guys, this is a tough group. I mean, No-Gel Eastern, gritty defender. Grady Eifert, gritty defender. Matt Harms has found his role. He struggled in that early part of the year. Painter sent him to the bench. He's responded. Now he's a force in the paint, blocking shots. Had 10 rebounds against Illinois, had 9 the game before that. So this is just a really, really tough group. They got a gifted scorer leading the way, and obviously when he's hot, they can beat anybody. But even when he's not, those role players still give them a chance. And when you got a senior like Ryan Klein hitting 45% of his threes, that's a recipe for success.
Yeah, and the reason Purdue's sitting, well, not Purdue, but the reason Michigan State has a good chance to walk away with at least a share as they follow Purdue this weekend is because they took care of Michigan. So lumping Michigan into this discussion, Michigan kind of looked like the favorite, at least for the first half of the Big Ten season when they were sitting at 17-0 or whatever. Talking about the elite teams in the Big Ten. I was watching ESPN, or I think I saw it maybe on a social media clip of the ESPN College Basketball Show with Jay Williams and Seth Greenberg. They were debating whether the Big Ten has a Final Four caliber team among its ranks. I want to get your thoughts on that. Jay Williams did not think that the Big Ten has a Final Four caliber team. I think Seth Greenberg smartly pointed out that you didn't think last year they would have, and Michigan had to open up for them in the tournament. To their credit, they seized an opportunity and made it all the way to the championship game. So I want to get your thoughts on Jay Williams' comments that there's no Final Four caliber team. Agree, disagree? What do you think?
I would disagree with that. I think both Michigan schools have a really good chance. Obviously, so much of it is dependent on matchups. Mm-hmm. The Michigan State team of last year just kind of ran into a bad matchup. And like you said, Michigan, once they got by Houston, the bracket opened up for them. They were able to play, Florida State, who was a 9 seed, and they got to play A&M, who was a 7 in the Sweet 16. So, so much of it is about the bracket and about matchups. And if a team gets upset, does that open up the bracket for you? But I think two teams like Michigan, Michigan State that play defense the way they do, they're both in the top 10 in defensive efficiency. That travels. And so if you can play defense and shoot the three well, you got a chance to beat anybody. Michigan right now has struggled to shoot the ball, but you wonder when they get out of conference play, you get out of this 20-game grind where everybody knows what you're going to do on every single set.
Right.
You start playing some teams that aren't as familiar with you. Maybe they get that spark back and you start seeing Poole make shots again, and Matthews and Brazdeikis can get going at the same time, which we really haven't seen much of.
Right. Other teams outside of those top three that we talked about, outside of Michigan, Michigan State, and Purdue, like is a Maryland or Wisconsin a threat? I think that those go back to some of the matchups or in the familiarity you talked about. Maryland's got as much talent as about as any upper echelon team in college basketball. Wisconsin can give teams fits depending on who they are or who they're going up against. So do you think there's teams outside of that top three that have a potential deep tourney run in them? I've been saying Iowa, if they get things figured out in the first half, and stop having to rely on late game heroics, that they've got potential just because they can shoot so well when things are clicking.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, Maryland is super talented. In addition to that front line with Bruno and Jalen Smith, Anthony Cowan's a guy who's got experience that can make plays late. They've got Wiggins and Ayala who can both shoot the three. I mean, they turn it over a little bit too much for me, so if they play a team that pressures the ball, I could see them having an issue. But, if they get stuck, I don't want to say get stuck, but if they wind up playing the transition game, I'd take Maryland.
Mm-hmm.
They got a lot of length and a lot of athleticism. Iowa, they definitely have, size and athleticism. They like to push the pace. They're the leading scoring team in the Big Ten, and they've got a guy who can make shots when it counts, in Jordan Bohannon. So their biggest issue is defending. And so if they go into it like they did against Ohio State the other night, then it might be a one-and-done situation for them. But if they actually buy in on defense, I could see them being a second weekend team.
Why do you think Iowa has been so enigmatic? Has it been because their defense is still lacking? I mean, we talked about, or at least I looked into Iowa's defensive numbers as opposed to the last 2 years when they were one of the worst teams in the country. They've at least moved in the middle of the pack now in college basketball. So do you think it stems from just the defense still not being good enough to, have them blow teams out, or is the offense an issue and the reason why they are playing from behind, and they need Bohannon to hit these crazy threes like we've seen?
I think some of it is the fact that they're not a good man-to-man defensive team. It seems like when they get back in the game, it's because they're able to force turnovers when they start that press, that three-quarter court press. Sometimes they'll drop back into a zone, force teams to shoot over the top, and then if they get a long rebound, they can push the pace and run, which is what they want to do anyway. If you put them in a half court, I think they really do struggle to score sometimes, which is crazy considering that Garza is a skilled post player and Bohannon can shoot, but Tyler Cook, exactly. But sometimes they just don't take the best shots, and it seems like they've kind of, hey, we'll wait till the last 4 or 5 minutes, and, we've pulled these games out before, so why can't we do it again? And
they also have so many skilled offensive players.
Exactly.
I think that sometimes if you have a lot of skilled offensive players but not one or two necessarily go-to guys, the rhythm kind of gets thrown off a little bit.
Like Joe Wieskamp's a really good player.
Yeah.
And sometimes he just doesn't get enough shots. And Isaiah Moss, he'll get you for 20 one game and he'll get you for 3 in another one. It's a lot of guys you don't know who's going to show up on a given day.
Do you think Fran being suspended these next 2 games is going to affect them at all? It's just, from a chemistry standpoint or a distraction standpoint?
I would say no, just because there's a lot of veterans on that team. I would say, Bohannon being an upperclassman, Nicholas Baird being an upperclassman, Tyler Cook being an upperclassman. I think that should be enough. He will be there for senior day. He won't coach the game, obviously, but he'll be there for the festivities against Rutgers. I assume he'll be missed when they play at Wisconsin after that. But I think just the fact that they've got enough upperclassmen, they can rally the troops for those 2 games.
All right, moving on. Before we wrap up, we have to touch on Penn State and what they've been able to do since starting 0-10 in the Big Ten. Have you ever seen a team that, one, not only looks the part, they got some legit dudes on that roster, and it's backed up in their advanced metrics. They're 45 in KenPom. Some teams, if they were that high and their record was flipped, they were 16-12, not 12-16, they'd be probably a tournament team right now. You've seen a team that, looks the part both numbers-wise, eye test-wise, that just hasn't got the results. That fell so far behind that it's too late unless they run the table in the tournament?
Well, I think part of it is that we know Lamar Stevens has been great. We know Josh Reeves has been solid. They didn't have Mike Watkins for a big portion of non-conference, and, he has some off-the-court stuff, I guess. But the biggest thing has been the freshmen, Dredd and Bolton. They kind of struggled early.
Yep.
They kind of struggled to find their role, find their footing. And during this win streak, though, they have been great. Dredd has been great In the Maryland game, he was great. In the Michigan game, we saw Bolton take over part of the Michigan game and part of the Illinois game. So now you don't have to just rely on Lamar Stevens taking a tough shot. You don't have to just rely on Josh Reeves, getting a steal in transition. You don't have to just dump it into Mike Watkins and hope he doesn't get into foul trouble. Like Dredd and Bolton can space the floor. Like they can shoot the three. Bolton, we've seen him, pump fake and take guys to the rack as well. So, they've got a nice 5 or 6 players, and Jamari Wheeler sets the tone for the defense. So they're a team I definitely wouldn't want to play in Chicago. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, they're a legit scary team right now. And what does it mean outside of them not, obviously not quitting on Chambers and playing good basketball and getting some feel-good wins for the program? Does it mean anything beyond that? Like, can they make the NIT this year and build on this? Is there positive momentum to be gained outside of, this several-week stretch here?
I think there can be for the younger guys. I think if Dredd and Bolton continue to play well, that could be a nice springboard for sophomore seasons. Lamar's a junior. I'm not sure if he's going to try to test the waters or not, but he's playing at a first-team All-Big Ten level right now. It does make you wonder what if they could have figured it out a little earlier. What if they didn't lose to Bradley?
Right.
What if they start 3-7 instead of 0-10 in Big Ten play? What if they hold on against Purdue or get the foul call on Lamar Stevens that they should have got in that game? Like, how much different, does this Penn State season look? It's definitely an interesting situation. I'll be curious to see if, they finish their regular season strong and if they win a couple games in Chicago to get to the quarters, does that change anything going forward? It'll be interesting to see.
I can see NIT inviting them back. You don't have to be 500 anymore to get a bid, and they won it last year. They're clearly in that range of teams, so we'll have to see. One more discussion I want to get to before we wrap up. That's the Player of the Year discussion. Cassius Winston's been a candidate all year long. Edwards at Purdue and Ethan Happ kind of been the other two guys. Do you see any sort of debate at this point, or as most people have kind of come to that consensus, do you think it's Cassius from your Spartans that is going to walk away with the bag?
So it looked like for a while, it was, Carson, Happ, and Winston. Winston kind of seemed like the leader over those two, and there was a week where none of them played well. Like Carson would go out and he would shoot terribly, and, Cassius would go 3 for 15, and Happ would get benched late in the game because he couldn't make free throws. And then that kind of continued, and then last week happened. Ward goes out. Winston drops 28 on Rutgers, then 27 in the win against Michigan. And now he's averaging 19 and 7 on the first-place team. It's kind of hard for me to see him not winning it at this point. The only guys to average 19 and 7 from a power league this decade are Cassius, Denzel Valentine, Trae Young, and Pierre Jackson. Pretty good list.
Right.
So he leads the league in plus minus. He's won Big Ten Player of the Week 5 times already. So it's kind of hard for me to see anybody else winning this award.
All right. Last topic here, Big Ten tournament coming up. I'm sure we'll talk before then, but we've already got a couple of first or double buys locked up. Top 4 seeds, that's Purdue, Michigan State, correct? All right, so we talked about them plenty, but there's one statistic I want to get to with Michigan State in regards to every single Big Ten tournament. I think this is the 22nd Big Ten tournament. What has Michigan State done all 22 years? It's something I find unbelievable, honestly.
Yeah, they're the only team that's played on quarterfinal Friday all 22 years. And so that means that they've either gotten the double bye to get to that point, or they've had to, win a game on Thursday to get to that point. They've been the only team to do it. I think Wisconsin is at 20, possibly could be 21, depending on this year. I think they're lost in Nebraska a couple years ago in Indy. It was the only time they didn't make it to quarterfinal Friday. But it is pretty amazing considering, how this league is and how upsets happen and how crazy the tournament it is, that only one team has gotten to the quarters every single year.
Yeah, unbelievable consistency, and that's why we have you here, H, for the juicy stats like that. So
and shout out to Purdue. This is 5 straight years with a double bye. That's hard to do, and 14 Big Ten wins for 3 straight years. Matt Painter's done a really, really good job.
Yeah, that was an impressive stat graphic that they were showing on the Illinois-Purdue broadcast last night. I think it showed Purdue doing it twice in the last couple decades, and then Indiana was, or who's the other team?
It was Indiana.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, elite company,
Yep.
Especially for one program to have done it twice. Purdue basketball is, model consistency, and props to them, like you said, props to Michigan State, and H will be continuing to talk in your busy time of year. Can't wait to catch up. Can't wait for 14 games of the UC coming up. It should be fun.
Oh, yeah. It'll be a whole lot of fun. I actually get to see the Spartans in action against Nebraska. I'm actually going up to the game in East Lansing next Tuesday.
Oh, enjoy it. Sounds good. All right, man. Enjoy it, and we'll get you back in here whenever possible.
All right. Sounds good.
All right. Thanks once again to Harold for joining me. As always, great stuff from him. Nobody can dissect the Big Ten basketball scene better and put some of those advanced numbers into layman's terms like H can. I always appreciate talking to him and him giving up some of his time, especially during a busy time of year. All right, moving on to our final segment. As I referenced at the top of the show, it's another Call for the Culture segment with producer Colleen Degnan, who gets us caught up on the intersection of sports, pop culture, and any and everything else that is hot in the streets right now on social media, and just in, society in general. We'll get to it, and we'll get to it right now. Let's toss it over to Colleen. All right, we're back with another Call for the Culture segment. I'm sitting alongside Colleen Degnan. Colleen, welcome back. Happy March.
Happy March. We are saying goodbye to February.
Absolutely, and I'm glad because February, I think, is my least favorite month out of all 12 months. It's really brutal. There's nothing really redeeming about it except it's short.
I mean, it shortchanged itself.
Yeah.
28 days this year.
So that's the best part about it, because really February is full of slush, not a great sports month, and we already talked about Valentine's Day a couple weeks ago. So, it's just not a great month overall, but March, which we're getting into, is one of my favorites. So I'm glad we're here and we can get our green on.
Yeah, but in the meantime, we're saying bye to February, as well as bye to Alex Hornibrook for the Badgers.
Yeah, your former classmate at Wisconsin, you guys overlapped a little bit there. Surprising news came yesterday. I was surprised when we got that release from the Badger Athletic Department that Alex Hornibrook's moving on. He's transferring to undetermined school. He's entered the transfer portal. That's the term that has kind of sprung up this year.
It's a little late to the game, though.
Do you want to bid farewell to your former classmate? Polarizing guy, Alex Hornibrook?
Polarizing, and I think the Twitter universe is being a little bit harsh on him. I don't think he was nearly as bad as people are being, or as dramatic as people are being about it, but I'm very okay to say goodbye to him. I'm very excited for Graham Mertz.
Yeah, tell me about Graham Mertz, because the Wisconsin alums in the office, very high on him. What do I need to know?
We're high on him. He was an incredible recruit out of Kansas, I believe.
Okay, 4-star guy, I think.
And
freshman coming in.
He's going to be a freshman. He had offers from across the SEC and the Big 12, and he chose Wisconsin, which is a great choice. He already sounds like a smart guy to me.
Yeah, I'm looking at the release right now, and, like we talked about, Hornibrook has some fans, but I think a lot of people aren't too sad to see him go. Stats at his time in Wisconsin, third all-time Badger history in touchdown passes with 47, fourth all-time in completion percentage, 60%, over 60%, and fifth in passing yards. So those are some pretty lofty numbers and records he probably would have broken if he would have stayed another year. So, for all the ups and downs he had, you can't argue with the numbers that he was one of the better quarterbacks in Badger history.
That's the thing, but it's going to be very controversial pending where he goes. If he ends up at another Big Ten school, let's say, even bigger X on his back coming from a lot of Wisconsin fans, I'm sure. Yeah,
I wonder if that's a possibility. It's so fresh and so recent right now that we haven't really gotten to potential destinations, but I think just the way college football is now, that transfers are going to be a thing pretty much throughout the spring. I mean, quarterbacks will, especially quarterbacks, because obviously there's only really one spot in each team, will continue to move on. I mean, it's not even over yet because there's still guys that can graduate and potentially, get that year without sitting out. So it'll be something to keep an eye on. And who knows? There are a couple teams in the Big Ten that can maybe use a experienced arm like Hornibrook. But,
I mean, I guess. But yeah, football news with that. Also,
where he's not going is the NFL, at least not yet, because he's got that one more year. But the NFL is back in the news just a mere few weeks after the Super Bowl, because we got the NFL Combine down in Indy. First of all, I know you have takes on the NFL Combine. So what are your overall thoughts on just the whole circus or charade that week in Indy is?
I mean, it's hilarious and so much pressure. There's all of these random deliverables that they must do that is just so unrealistic of what they're actually going to be performing in the NFL. Like measuring their hand size and making such a stink over centimeters on their height, and like catch me never giving out my height, weight, hand size for any job in my near future.
Well, what's funny about it is Kyler Murray, the Oklahoma quarterback, who is going to be
Heisman winner.
Yeah, Heisman winner, who's going to be probably a high draft pick. Everyone was freaking out because he was 5'10" and not 5'9". Like that was the big news this week was. He was measured at 5'10". Like, is it really going to make a difference if he's 5'9" and 7'8" as opposed to 5'10"?
Apparently.
Probably not. Funny thing about the Combine, though, is I've heard it's just a big, pretty much party for all the execs and a lot of the scouts. And, there's people doing their jobs, but a lot of it is just a big convention, essentially, for a lot of NFL higher-ups. And they get to go hang out in Indy and eat a shrimp cocktail from St. Elmo's and basically live it up for 4 or 5 days. I don't know about your thoughts on Indy. You've gone for some of the games. What are your thoughts of it as far as a party town goes?
I've endured some tough Badger losses there, so in my eyes, the lead up to the games are always a good time. But I have not gone out after many times.
I mean, Indy to me is perfect for these types of events because like everything I say it, all the time leading up to Big Ten championship game, like. There's a few streets they need to be on, all the hotels, all the restaurants, the convention center, the arena is all in one place. So I can see why, it's a destination, especially for a slow week in February, what would otherwise be just kind of a, low-key time of year. Definitely don't blame them at all. Moving on, I don't know if there's anything else you want to talk to about the Combine. I know we've got some other professional sports stories, especially concerning your favorite professional team.
The Blazers are trending right now.
Yeah.
So hard, and I love it.
I feel like they've got the Take 10 podcast bump because we talked about them more than any of their podcasts outside of Portland, probably.
But we're giving them a lot of love.
Yeah, we're giving them a lot of love, and now it's kind of like a feedback loop. They keep popping up in the news.
They do. We've given them some positive karma. I mean, the city of Boston needs to check out their elevators.
Is that where it was?
Yeah, they got stuck in the elevators in Boston.
Okay, so people don't know what we're talking about. I think it was on Wednesday this week. Several members of the Blazers got caught and stuck in what is my worst nightmare, an elevator.
And it's an elevator full of professional NBA players. Like, that is claustrophobic times 100.
Not small guys.
Not small guys. And the best part is, their newest addition to the roster, Enes Kanter, is the one that's just filming them all, being the jokester. Like, he's just swooped in right there and is stealing the hearts of the Blazers fans, personally.
Yeah. Enes is a fan favorite wherever he's been. He kind of really emerged in New York as a member of the Knicks as being a fan favorite. You mentioned he just got traded to Portland. Who else was in that elevator?
We had Evan Turner, you had Dame, you had Zach Collins, you had your boy Myers Leonard.
Yep.
A bunch of guys were in it, and so it's so funny. And when they finally got out of it, like 30 minutes later, a crowd had formulated around them, and they were all clapping and cheering.
I'm not kidding. It's one of my. It's not something I'm scared. I'm not scared of elevators, but like a dream of mine that is recurring is something going wrong in an elevator. Like it's something that will pop up every once in a while, and it's not that I get like stuck in them in my dreams, but I'll either drop through the floor. Or the elevator will go past its floor and go through the roof of the building. It's probably one of the scariest recurring dreams I have. Which is impossible, but there's something about elevators that works its way into my nightmares, and I don't know what it is, but seeing them get out of the elevator, because it didn't stop at the floor.
No, they had to
they had to kind of crawl out, and I'm like, okay, it just broke. What's to stop it from just going?
Right.
I'm sure they were completely safe, and the technicians knew what they were doing, but. That's something I hope never happens to me. I know it's going to because I take elevators many times a day.
Yeah.
We work in...
We've got a nice elevator bank here.
Semi-tall building, yeah, so...
Groupon building.
Exactly.
But yeah, no, they got out safely as well as they got out of Boston with a win. So that's their 4th straight road win, and their road record is kind of trash. So they're on the up and up.
Fill me in, where are they at in the playoffs?
They're 4th in the West right now.
Wow.
So
much better than LeBron and the Lakers, who are not even in the playoffs. How funny would that be if they miss the playoffs?
I mean, by the way things are going, I won't be that surprised.
Yeah, but just the fact that LeBron picked up and left Cleveland to set up a Hollywood empire in LA, and he's doing, his HBO special. He's filming Space Jam.
I mean, he's loving
He's calling
his life,
out his
clearly.
younger teammates, and he's sitting out games due to load management, and then now it could all backfire this year. But, I mean...
It's
to be
exactly the karma he deserves.
To be fair, people forget, or at least it's harder to remember now that the first year of Miami Heat was not very smooth. And although they made the playoffs and the finals,
Right,
it
but
was pretty rocky and they lost. And there were questions about LeBron because this was before he won any titles at all. So
I guess I don't know the scene as well down there, but there's probably a few less distractions that he's currently occupying himself with in Los Angeles.
Opposed to Cleveland, yeah, for sure. So, his whole, that's the thing. It just commands everyone's attention. So, miss the playoffs, make the playoffs. Even if he misses it, the headline's going to be, what's LeBron doing? Like, is he going to be at these NBA games? Is he going to be working out? Is he going to be on an island or somewhere? Is he going to be in Cuba, like, just enjoying the offseason?
It doesn't matter. He's too much of that superstar name.
He's been like 8 straight finals or whatever, so it's not going to stop.
Also, out of Portland, though, not just Trailblazers, but my favorite ad this week, I got to share.
Okay.
I was with my girlfriends watching the Oscars on Sunday, which we can come back to. And the Serena Williams Nike Dream Crazier ad had just came out. And
just dropped is what the kids
say? It just dropped, huge drop. And it's incredible. And it's this agency out of Portland, Wyden and Kennedy. And the whole ad is Serena Williams narrating, and it's about all these incredible female athletes that are defying the odds and kind of like the negative stereotypes and nicknames that women are called for being the best in their sport and going to that next level. And so, just like I've been doing every week, wanted to give a nice shout out to the agency behind that.
Well, it kind of focused on also not just being successful in their sport, but what they're labeled when things might go wrong or when they're trying to motivate teammates or themselves, being
over emotional,
demonstrative, right? And whereas a guy like Tom Brady or LeBron or any man really in that level of the sport might get called fiery, energetic, and called motivational.
A leader.
That's the point that I was trying to make,
exactly.
Right? And obviously I can't speak to that, but is that something that resonates with you? That when you saw that ad, you're like, oh yeah, I've totally.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like really empowering to see somebody as gifted and talented as Serena Williams backing all of this, and you see like our professional soccer team and like the first female marathon runner, and it's just like a really great ad in line with all of the other Just Do It Nike ads, and came from Portland. So Whedon and Kennedy, nice job.
Have you ever been to Portland?
No.
See, that's crazy. I was going to say, I would have guessed otherwise because the amount we talk about
Seattle.
Rip City on this.
The unofficial Rip City podcast.
Exactly. Maybe someday we'll have to do a live pod from Rip City.
Well, when they come to Chicago.
Yeah.
March 27th.
I applied for credentials for the Bulls-Lakers game for the night before the Big Ten tournament. So Bulls and Lakers play March 12th at United Center.
Why would you get credentials for this?
Listen, so Big Ten tournament starts March 13th at United Center. And, just because it's a big deal with the Lakers in town and there's a couple of Big Ten alums on those rosters. I think there's Mo Wagner on the Lakers.
Right.
Denzel Valentine on the Bulls, although he's been hurt all year. And then you just have LeBron coming in. It can never hurt to shoot your shot and try to get in the doors. And maybe maybe you work your way into the scrum a little bit. Ask LeBron, hey, what do you think about the Big Ten tournament coming here? He's an Ohio State fan. There's angles there. I wasn't expecting to get approved, but I thought, like I said, it's worth it to shoot your shot. No, I was not approved. I was like,
I thought we were waiting for it. And I'm going.
Hey, friends of the Bulls, I know you're probably busy that day. Media hordes are probably swarming on Chicago. I think it's LeBron's only visit this year to the United Center. But I thought, maybe there's a Big Ten alum working in the office somewhere back in the back rooms on Madison Street over there. But fortunately, all that being said, I was denied. So I'll only be at the United Center from March 13th to March 17th, and there will be no LeBron James quotes regarding the Big Ten tournament. So it's a shame. It was a missed opportunity.
I appreciate that.
Maybe next year in Indy, I can go to a Pacers game the night before.
Nice try, though. Nice try.
It was worth a shot. Moving on from the realm of sports to more of a entertainment, Hollywood. Do you want to do music or do you want to do Hollywood first? I
think there's a nice intersectionality right there.
Okay. Let's hear it then. You're the expert.
Well, obviously the Oscars happened this weekend, and Lady Gaga and Bradley Cooper, Shallow, won Best Song.
Okay.
Which is my best takeaway from that. I thought the Oscars, there was no host, and it actually went very smoothly and well, and got a lot more positive feedback than it did last year.
Is best song like a normal
from an original?
But
original
is that usually a big deal, or is it just because Lady Gaga and Bradley Cooper were in it this year?
I think that hype definitely helped.
Okay.
But I want to say past winners include maybe Coco. Like, remember that animated Pixar movie?
Not really, to be honest.
You got some homework to do.
Okay, well, I didn't watch that much of the Oscars, but I did see that performance, that steamy performance between Lady Gaga and Bradley Cooper.
Yeah, but you have a horrible take on it.
Okay. And this kind of ties into a discussion we were having before about how you hate this term, but I want to cancel Lady Gaga and Bradley Cooper. I would like to officially cancel them. So it's just too much. Like, we already had to go through the Grammys with the whole Shallow thing. Okay, like, they get their victory lap, right? Great movie, great song. Then 2 weeks later, we're seeing the whole thing again.
Okay, they're completely different entities. Grammys is music, Oscars are movies.
I know, it was just a bit much. It was a little much.
Okay, it's first of all not too much. They did an incredible job. It was very moving. The internet loved it, except for you. Don't be this annoying outcast here.
I did see one tweet that went viral. I think it was from Bum Chillups, who is a college football writer for SB Nation, I think. Don't quote me on that. But anyway, he tweeted that Bradley Cooper, when he sings, is just doing the same voice that every guy sings when they sing Pearl Jam in the car or something like that, which is like, I don't even know that many Pearl Jam songs, but I just thought it was funny. Like,
I could maybe sing Even Flow, and
just
that's
doing the guttural voice.
But okay, secondly, canceled, that is not a term that should be used this frequently. You can't cancel somebody else doing something. You have no control over that. You can unfollow it. You can unsubscribe. Don't cancel what they're doing. You can't. They're not going to stop.
Yeah, obviously if I say it, but I just, it's a fun term. I like saying this is canceled. It's not going to have any impact whatsoever, but it just kind of shows the, I've had it.
I'm going to let whatever things keep doing their things. I just kindly step back. I'm unfollowing, unsubscribing. But I'm definitely not doing that to Lady Gaga and Bradley Cooper.
Okay. How about a group that was canceled that is now back? Apparently, from judging my Instagram story feed, everyone I follow, at least from a certain demographic, is posting this new song that's out by the Joe Bros. What's going on? I didn't even know that they were still together.
They're brothers, so I don't think they can ever not be together.
The Jonas Brothers, right?
Yes, the Jonas Brothers. Yeah. Tonight they are releasing a single.
Was this expected?
No,
I thought they were. Okay.
I had no idea.
So they've been.
They're all because one of them just got married, Nick, the youngest, or the third youngest, because they have a fourth brother who's not in the band.
That'd suck to be that guy.
I mean,
right?
He's living his life.
Yeah, living his life probably a lot poorer than his other three brothers, and
we're gonna have to do some research. I'm pretty sure his name's Frankie.
Okay.
But so Nick, the third youngest, just got married. That was everywhere. If you missed that, I'm surprised.
Good for him. Nope, didn't know that.
The second brother, Joe, is engaged.
Good for him.
Oh my gosh, you didn't know this either. And Kevin, the oldest, is also married.
Well, you can't be that big a fan. You didn't even know they were coming out with a song.
I was not on the radar.
Okay, so they're back. Had they been together this whole time? I just remember them
Nick kind of went off and did his own thing.
But I remember them they were on Nickelodeon, right? They came up when we were kind of growing up on the Slime Awards and stuff, right? Isn't that where they kind of got their name?
And I most definitely went to one of their concerts. So yes, I was all in on the Joe Bro fan club.
Okay, well.
So we'll give results. We'll give our feedback on the song next week.
Honestly, I know they've had some bangers. I'm not going to lie. I'll probably listen to it.
Year 3000 will go down as a jam for forever.
Wasn't that the Phil of the Future song on Disney Channel?
No.
It was. I swear. Phil, remember that show, Phil of the
Yeah.
Future? And I think they used it as a mashup. And I don't know. I could be wrong. But they were in the year 3000, so that's why.
That was in the Disney Channel glory days.
Yeah, it was.
Sweet Life of Zack and Cody.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Wizards of Waverly Place.
That's So Raven.
That's So Raven.
That's So Raven was a great one. Proud Family.
Lizzie McGuire.
Remember the Proud Family?
Yeah, I didn't love that one.
That was so good.
I don't dig the cartoon.
With Sugar Mama, and she would be sitting on the couch, and then someone would change the channel, and she would pop away. I'm watching that. That was.
I wasn't
as
a devout follower, but Lizzie McGuire's.
Speaking of ABC, Disney, that whole conglomerate, I have to bring up one more thing before we sign off for the week, and I did this because I thought I could relate. I thought I could bring a little more to this.
Oh, yeah. You came in
this
week
segment.
Stereotyping me, thinking that I also watch this.
Okay. All I'm saying is your demographic and a lot of 20-something girls I know, this is market research I've done. I've gone on social media and just, talking to my friends. They love The Bachelor on ABC. Every year. It's something that I have to hear about Bachelor Mondays. Girls get together with their cheese plates and their wine on Monday nights, and all sit together
Don't
and watch.
act like you don't like either of those things.
Okay,
you
I do.
love
I just don't like watching The Bachelor with it. But I sat down. I was like, I'm going to watch this. I think Colleen watches The Bachelor, and I'm going to bring something to the table for our discussion, and I'll know what I'm talking about. I sit down Monday night. I didn't know these shows were 2 hours. I was like, I get an hour in, and it's still going, and I'm like, oh, God, okay.
And 3 girls probably already cried. And
Okay, yeah, so this wasn't my idea, by the way. My roommate, Dan Bernstein, if he's listening to this.
Under the bus.
Yeah, toss him under the bus. He wanted to watch it. I was like, all right, I'll sit down and watch. Not much going on. So I'd seen The Bachelor before. It's basically one of those like car crash type shows. Like you it's entertaining. You don't want to look away, but it's it's bad content, and it's not good for society. So anyway, so But there's something to be said for bad TV. Like, I was a Jersey Shore fan when Jersey Shore was on the air.
GTL
This falls,
all day.
I think this falls under that same category. It's just so ridiculous, though. Like, this was the episode where the Bachelor, Colton, goes to the hometowns of each girl and meets the parents, right?
Dramatic.
All the ladies seem lovely, very nice young women. And Colton, actually, shout out to him, is from Washington, Illinois, which is a small town outside Peoria. One of our mutual friends actually
has never watched The Bachelor before. Yeah, right.
Actually
Alex.
knows the guy, so I know like the background info. I'm connected to everybody. I know the Firefest people. I know like through 2 degrees separation, The Bachelor. So
Mr.
it's
It
cool.
Boy over here.
It's cool watching these and like kind of getting some inside info on him. Anyway, he's going to all these houses, and literally 4 times in a row, he says the same thing to each girl's dad, and is like, "I'm falling in love with your daughter. Can I have her hand in marriage to have your blessing?"
Oh my God, he asked all of them?
All 4 of them. I'm like, you just asked his other dad probably like a day ago for his blessing, and you said the same thing about you're falling in love with the daughter. Like, I know this is like the shtick of the show, but it was just, I don't know, it was just funny to me, and like, it kind of, not gonna lie, it got pretty boring by the end because he asked the 4th dad for.
You're like, I know what he's gonna say.
Right. So, I don't know, thoughts on a gentleman asking 4 fathers in probably the span of a week for 4 women's hand in marriage?
It seems exhausting, but by the 4th one, I bet he sounded perfect.
Oh, he had his lines down.
But yeah, super, super slimy to me, a little bit cheeseball. But
what are your thoughts on the show? You obviously don't watch. I assumed wrong.
You were very wrong. I watched it with my girlfriends haphazardly in college because that is fun. But no, ever since I watched the first Bachelorette season when Trista married Ryan, and I think they're still together because they were in the Rose Parade. So in Pasadena, we got to see them.
Good for them. True love story.
But yeah, no, that's really not in my wheelhouse.
All right. Well, next time I'm going to ask you about what you're watching, so that way we can kind of we can link up and align our talking points, and I don't totally misfire like I did and waste 2 hours of my life watching The Bachelor. So
I
feel kind of hooked now. Now I have to like
I
have to at least see like who wins.
Which girl's gonna get the hand in marriage?
We'll see who gets the rose. All right, Colleen, it's been great. I think we've hit on everything going on.
I just want to make sure that everyone knows a very important menu item is back.
What's that?
Shamrock shakes.
Oh, yeah.
In honor of March hitting.
I don't know the last time I had a Shamrock shake.
I know they're probably the worst thing for you, but they are so good.
I need a McDonald's by me. Like, I guess I have one at Wrigley Field I can go to and stop by.
But that's my 2 cents. Everybody go enjoy a Shamrock shake. And we'll be back next week.
Big days ahead. We got Shamrock Shakes back. We got
Big One days like B1G days ahead.
Big Ten tournament. March Madness coming up. We'll be covering it. We'll be talking about it.
Maybe we're going to actually get some spring weather. Maybe.
Not this weekend. It's going to be freezing.
I'm going to just send that out into the universe and hope for the best.
So look ahead to next week when we will have some tourism reviews for what to do if you're coming in town for the Big Ten tournament in Chicago. So
amazing.
All right. Moving on. Thanks, Colleen.
We'll see you next week.
All right, thanks one more time to Spike, Harold, Colleen for joining me. Thanks to everyone who listened all the way through. Even if you didn't, appreciate you tuning in at all. Appreciate my producers, as always, for helping stitch the show together. That's Julie Bronder and Wes White. Couldn't do this without them. And once again, just a shout out to everyone who has tuned in. Fun time of year. Can't wait to continue to bring on good guests, and I'm sure we'll do some bracketology talk coming up soon on the show, and talk to some people at the United Center and in and around the Big Ten tournament. So plenty of good stuff to come here on the Take 10 podcast as college basketball comes down the home stretch, so stay tuned. Thanks to everyone once again for listening, and we'll talk to you next time here on the Take 10 podcast.